Welcome everybody to game night. We're going to showcase a lot of really cool games by our students today. Uh, we're instructing some students at Parsons this past semester, and we got some great guests from all over the New York City game scene. And this is being graciously hosted by Babycastles. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here and taking your time to be here. And thanks to the students for showing all their cool games. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started and go with showing our agenda for the day. Okay, so I've got too many windows open. Okay, whoops, leaked. Okay, so what is this? So we're showcasing the students' work. We're going to do a brief intros to our guest critics and our hosts, 15 minutes or so of that. Then the main thing we're going to showcase tonight is, of course, the students' work. This is about 11 students, and we're going to give them about like 10 minutes each. And then we're going to have about a 10-minute break around 7:30. Maybe we're pushing it back a little bit today because of some delays we had earlier, but no matter. We'll still shoot to wrap up on time at 9. And yeah, we're going to wrap up, have some time to wrap up at the end to give some thanks and some shout outs and tell y'all where to look for things next. So yeah, let's give some intros to our guest critics, shall we? So yeah, intros, guests. So yeah, let's check out our first guest critic, Sam Angs. Hello, say hello for the crowd, Sam. Here's a teaser trailer. I'm sure we have your permission to show this, so we're going to show this real quickly for a skate story. Awesome. Yes, very cool. So Sam has been around the New York City game scene and is currently based around Gumbo and is working on Skate Story. So please check it out. Check out more work by Sam at bysameng.com. All right, let's move on. This is John Korn up next. Wave hello. And John Korn's also at Gumbo. Yep. And we're going to see the launch trailer for Meow Pow, which you can get on Steam right now. All right, and there definitely was, whoops. Okay, I'm glad that interrupted me because all I was going to say is there was definitely a lot of meow and there was definitely a lot of pow in that. So yeah, happy to be just making a terrible, terrible pun. All right, and then Sin is also here, member of Babycastles and also Indiecade finalist 2017, and this was one of their works at just a collaboration of they did back in the day called David Lynch Teaches Typing that has some dark twists in it, as you can imagine, but we're just going to take a quick look at it before moving on.
This is filmmaker David Lynch. I'm going to be taking you through the magical world of typing. By the time you finish this computer program, you'll be a typing wizard. Let's rock! To begin, rest your fingers on the home row with your left index finger on the F key and your right index finger on the J key. Using your left index finger, push down on the F key. Wow! Excellent! Well done! Let's move on to the next key.
Okay, there's some twists in there.
Just a normal typing game.
Normal typing game. No, no worries here, folks. All right, and then we're expecting Ava K to arrive later on. They're a member at Wonderville and Babycastles and teaching at NYU Game Center. We're expecting them to arrive later on, so please welcome them when they arrive. And then we also got a notice from Kevin Chen, who's a little late on the train, and he'll be arriving shortly. But he's currently at Avalanche Studios right now, which is known for doing the Just Cause series. But before that, he had a life as an indie game developer in New York City, and this was his kind of a magnum opus, Four Horsemen. All right, and you can check that out on HIO and Steam. And then we have staff from Dave Shire, and Flan couldn't make it today, but yeah, say hello, Dave.
I'm muted. Hi, I'm Dave. I'm from Babycastles.
Yep.
I do some game dev stuff sometime and put events like this together.
Yep, Dave's real cool. So yeah, follow Dave. There's also me and Yuen. Ren has been doing a lot of behind the scenes work, so that's really cool. And they're one of the students graduating this semester, so please check out their work. They're also in the showcase today, so yeah, please check out their work. And I'm Charles, so yeah, please follow me on Twitter. I don't have anything to plug right now. I'm on Twitter at Mudita Heart, Mudita Heart. So yeah, you can follow that if you want. But anyway, I'm teaching Parsons this semester and we're wrapping up. It's very bittersweet, but I want to leave the students off on a good note and show off all their cool work. So yeah, let's check out some games, and let's check out some students' work. And speaking of which, let's get to our first student's work, Elena Peng. So we're going to have to do some switch off time now, so bear with us for one moment as we switch off. All right, and we're back, and we're showcasing Elena's work. Thank you for joining us, Elena. And we also had Kevin join us. So thank you for joining us, Kevin. I'm just trying to shrink this thing. Okay. Just put that in the corner there. And Elena is a creative technologist and AR developer based in China and New York. She has interests in immersive installation, AR, VR, MR, illustration, and feminism. She enjoys challenges and solving coding problems. She values inclusive and equitable design. Yes, welcome, Elena. And welcome our guest critics. And let's check out a trailer for Monster Zone by Elena. Okay, great. And yeah, that was Monster Zone. Thank you. And yeah, a couple more screenshots. This is what it looks like in action. Here's more screenshots. And yeah, that's and yeah, now we can give some Q&A for feedback for Elena's game, Monster Zone. So yeah, Monster Zone is a AR two-player collaborative iOS mobile game that uses hand gesture control. It explores an intuitive control in AR gameplay and seeks the key moments in human relationship. So yeah, thank you, Elena. So yeah, any feedback from the guest critics or from the crowd, feel free to just chime in, hop in. And feel free to request me to change slides and all that as well.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you can you speak on how the game seeks for key moments in human relationship? That sounds really neat.
Oh yeah. So this game is it's like a two-player collaboration game. So um, I want the player to build a stronger relationship throughout this gameplay. And then I think in the player test, I think a lot of people it's having fun and um, they have a really enjoyable memory together. So I think that's really a key moment in in our life, and because these days like it's really hard to get a really strong and deep relationship with others. Like everything is Zoom, everything is remote now. With this in-person gameplay, I think people are getting to know each other more through this gameplay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions?
Can you talk about like what the gameplay's like between the like how the two players are interacting with each other?
Yes. So the main game level for right now, this is a MVP, minimum viable product. So the first level, the two player will be divided on two sides of the bridge. So there's like one long bridge, but they will be on the left side, and the other player will be the right side. And then there's like an invisible wall in between them. They have to go through. They will be. I should have put like the entire bridge illustration here. But there is like different platform that can move, and then one player will control the other player's platform, and then they can help them to move forward and go to the other side of the bridge. And then once they get to the end of the bridge, they can exchange their color at the end of it, so that it symbolizes like you're getting something from the other player. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So like the game is about like communication and helping each other.
Yes.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, we. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so there's like different tricks in this 3D structure. For example, the wooden bridge in between, as you can see in the picture, it only can stand for one person, so one player. If it's two person, it wouldn't lift. So there's a key moment that the red player has to jump off the bridge for the blue player to lift up to the upper level. So it's kind of collaborating and giving to the other player the choice to go up. So yeah.
Are there elements of competition in the game?
But right now there isn't. But for the next level, I do want competition. Slightly, there should be competition to make the game more fun, and I think a little bit of competition can make the relationship even stronger. So you can work together and you can compete with each other.
cool.
Can
Awesome.
you sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
I think we have time for, yeah. I guess we'll have two more remarks and then wrap up there.
So I wanted to ask a little bit about the AR elements. Could you explain like why you chose AR as part of this game and if it has any interaction with the game mechanics?
Oh yeah. So personally, I have a really deep interest in the mixed reality and also computer vision, like how computer track human body and human gesture. So I think my interest started from the very beginning of my freshman year, and then a lot of my projects will have this kind of components. So for this specific project, it has three components basically. It has the multiplayer. So the player is linked to the network and it's online. And then the key control, it's the gesture control. So your hand has to be shown in front of your phone camera. And then when you do specific gesture, the little monster will react to your gesture. It's like you're training your little monster. I personally I do find this interaction kind of new and unique because I don't from my research I haven't seen a lot of games that use this kind of gesture control in AR. So I want to explore this kind of more intuitive. You can kind of use your hand to control things in mixed reality. I know there is the Oculus have like hand gesture. Oh,
I think we have to wrap up soon, so maybe one more remark. We want to get in a comment from Sin, I believe, and then we have to move on.
I was gonna say that she's basically answering what I was gonna.
Okay.
ask her
Okay.
about,
Great.
so
Okay.
keep talking.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Was did you want to yeah, you're free to finish that last remark and then we'll move on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot what I left off.
I think we were talking about the gestures.
Oh yeah. So right now in the market, I think Oculus headset, VR headsets has gesture control. They have like 4 camera in their headsets. I think one of my intent for this project is let everyone to kind of experience this gesture control without buying like an expensive device. So you can just have your phone and then download this app and then kind of experience this new experience or technology at home. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely something to be said about the accessibility of AR technology. Great. All right. Thank you, Elena. I think we have to move on, but yeah, great first game to start off on. So yeah, thank you. Snap, snap, snap. All right. So yeah. Yeah, we'll have to get started on Yuen. Maybe this will be even faster than to switch off now that we have this new format. So Yuen, are you there?
Yes,
Good.
give me a second. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we're gonna do your intro here, and yeah, and then we're gonna get to the Q&A afterwards. So yeah, great.
Yeah, awesome.
So yeah, Yuen is a game designer, illustrator, and storyteller based out of New York. They have a love of storytelling and recording personal histories, and a deep interest in how we express our inner worlds through art. Find more of their works on 005 Lumens, and I believe also you commented in the chat on Elena's game that Elena's game was really cute and got your competitive streak going. So yeah, that's really great. So you're both here and in the chat at the same time. And also Yuen's also been helping out with the behind the scenes a lot too, in addition to doing a game, which is also a pretty cool game, I should add as well. So yeah, let's check out the trailer for the game.
At the beginning, there was only me.
I knew that I was something better than myself. I was your mother. I am your mother. And most importantly, you are my child. Forever and always.
All right. Always, forever, and always. Clap, clap, clap. Here's some screenshots of the gameplay. Feel free to just soak it in. All right. Forever and Always, an ongoing project, a surreal rhythmic puzzle platformer about the nature of relationships, identity, and family. All right. Yeah, let's already gotten a comment in the chat from Nate Kiernan. This has a great look. So yeah, thank you, Nate. And yeah, feel free to chime in, guest critics, at this point, and feel free to let me know if you want to go back a slide or not.
So I just wanted to say I love this watercolor art style. I imagine it must have taken a long time to do all of this, but I did actually enjoy the kind of minimalist shortcuts like this mountain over here. The effort at the this very striking black and white like monochrome with a little bit of color palette is fantastic. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Yeah, should I just let the other guest critics first, or should I respond as we go?
Feel free to respond. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really actually stuck on like what I wanted the game to look like. I was kind of going between like 2.5D or like going full 3D, but I am most familiar with 2D, and I was kind of on the time crunch, but it was really interesting just trying to prepare like the assets for this game, and all of like the foliage and rocks and stuff that you see are all like individual PNGs that I've ported in to build the environment. So not every single environment is like hand drawn, but it's just a amalgamation of assets. But yeah, it's interesting to figure out that pipeline. Thank you so much though, Kevin. I appreciate it.
All right. Feel free to chime in, another guest critic.
So you described it as a rhythmic puzzle platformer. Can you give an example of like one of the what the puzzles is and like how it's rhythmic?
Yeah, I guess rhythmic isn't quite the right word. It's more melodic, because so the gameplay is essentially you hit the red star in the scene and that plays a melody back to you. So let's say C, D, E, and then your character will hop on platforms which have the according notes to play it back correctly. So it's kind of similar to games like Simon Says, or let's see. Yeah, that's the best point of reference that I have for you.
Cool. Thanks.
No problem.
I just want to say the art style is fantastic. I'm surprised that it's not 100% like every pixel hand drawn. It looks convincingly like you're not copy pasting assets. It's really neat. I love the look. Does this kind of stem from like an art style that you consider your personal style that you've been working on for a long time, or did you kind of lean this way specifically for the game?
I think something that I really emphasize in my practice is always to be flexible and to know a little bit of everything, because I think that's really important as a game designer, because if you are staking it out on your own. You have to basically learn to do everything yourself. So this style I developed in particular for this game because I felt like I suited it. It suited the story. I actually do have a question for the critics, but if you guys have any other remarks, then you should go ahead first before I ask.
I was going to ask about because it does seem like there is a lot of narrative stuff going on, right? Like, how is that structured?
Yeah, so that actually touches on what I was going to ask you guys is that I was curious as to how you guys are interpreting the trailer and what you think the storyline is. But essentially, how the narrative is going to be fed through to the player is that it'll have like these silent individual scenes where these two characters are interacting and it shows how their relationships progress through um, the environment and the music of the platforms, so to speak.
Right. And I've played the game, and I just want to note that like it's already doing a bunch of that already in the existing build, but fortunately we didn't get to see that in the trailer we had so far. So yeah, just good to give fair credit where it's due.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of hard to tell from the trailer. I guess that's a problem with the trailer for any kind of narrative game, especially when a lot of it's not clear whether it's gameplay or not. But I'm reminded a little bit of this might be a little bit of a deep cut, but there was a Hansel and Gretel themed horror game, point and click adventure game that was really popular on Newgrounds about 20 years ago. Okay, maybe that's going a little too far, but yeah, without seeing the game itself, it's really hard for me to tell. But I can tell that you're investing, or you hope the player will invest pretty heavily in these two characters, this sort of beam of light and this little Red Riding Hood kind of girl. And I'm actually kind of curious to see how those character interactions are going to be expressed through your gameplay.
So essentially the figure in red is the star's mother. And the theme of the game is that in this relationship, they find purpose and expectation within each other. And it really speaks to how when like these expectations are broken, that person changes. So I think like a big part of the game. So the demo that I have finished for finals is essentially just like the start of the relationship where everyone is idealistic and just like this is going really well right now. But at the end, I think they're both going to turn into like these monstrous versions of each other once their expectations of one another are broken. As you can see at the end of the trailer, when her veil is torn asunder, and you can see like, oh, she's not as normal as you would expect. And yeah, hopefully it will make a lot more sense. I think I've always struggled with towing the line between trusting the player to be smart enough to figure it out on their own versus like helping them along. And I think that's always something that's really difficult for me. I think a big point of inspiration for me was Journey, which is mostly a wordless game, I feel like. But yeah.
Sorry, I have a follow-up question about that. Since it seems like you've given this some thought already, I was wondering like if you had some ideas going forward and how you could use the game mechanics to develop this relationship that you're talking about, where they start from this idealized position and then become monstrous through this interaction with each other. The thing you mentioned about the platform elements sounds really cool. I was wondering how you plan to tell that story through those elements.
Yeah, I think that was something of a struggle because, as you might be able to tell, I am more focused on artistic and narrative development, and I don't really make games that are fun to play. I would say are mechanically strong, but I think like something interesting that I was playing with was having these two characters depend on each other to press notes. So maybe the child would hop forward a few and like stay on a note while the mother would play like two notes and that unlock like the next level. And I was playing with the idea of having one character start to move on their own to disrupt one another. So that's one way to get like the disintegration of their relationship across. So there's a lot of ideas just floating around in my head. It's just like technically implementing them is another story.
Okay. I think we might have time for one more remark. Otherwise, we'll just move on. But yeah.
Sure.
Any
I'll
last
ask.
remarks? Yeah. Or oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Go for it, Sam.
Oh, sorry. I was about to just ask, like your color palette's super strong with the white, gray, black, and red. It's very strong. I was wondering if you saw that as the sort of entire basis of it. Were you thinking of like having red only for example, interactable objects or something? Or what was your thinking there behind the color palette?
Yeah, so with the color palette, I was really leaning into it. If you could see in the trailer, like the mother and child both have opposing color palettes. And I think it would really help to dictate what paths they're going through. And it also symbolizes change because this character turns from white to red. And red and green are opposing colors. Sorry, I'm like brain vomiting. I have a lot of thoughts on this and not enough time, but you are all my captive audience, so you have to listen to me. But yeah,
It sounds like you really focused a lot on the meanings of colors in your visual development, right?
Yeah, so it's just a way to show perspective, I suppose, and to sort of show like which character's eyes you're seeing the world from, because I'm planning to do a level where you play as a kid and the puddles will turn green instead of red. So there's a lot of thinking behind that. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Charles. I think we're wrapping up to move to the next person.
Yeah, I think so. Unless Sin has something real quick.
You can move on.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, Ryan. And thank you so much for helping out. I mean, it really means a lot how much you helped out with this. So, yeah. Thanks a bunch.
No problem. I'm glad everyone could come.
All right. And up next is David.
Hi, I'm David.
Yes. All right. Let's. I guess I'll just continue as I've been continuing before. So, David is a proud tabletop game maker and illustrator, drawing since 5 years old, and have been doing it nearly every day. Whilst David's game making skills started back in the beginning of middle school. Does David consider himself a professional? Not yet, as there's always room for improvement, but David always believes that through hard work, anything is possible. Regardless, David just wants to keep on improving and making games for all to enjoy and relish in. Thank you. So yeah, let's check out David's trailer. Yeah. Be ready for this one. You'll see what I mean. Ooh. It's really strange. Some technical difficulties. Give us a second. Oh, it's going. Okay.
Since the dawn of time and the emergence of humanity, we have searched for the perfect game. We tried Scrabble, Knack 2, and Family Guy Back to the Multiverse for the Xbox 360. But the truth is, we found the perfect game. Rock, paper, scissors. So simple, so elegant, it is said to be the perfect form of entertainment. But You know what they say. If it ain't broke, make it better. It's simply complicated. The next evolution of rock, paper, scissors. The rule is simply to beat your friends, but there's a catch. Introducing the drawing mechanic, in which you yourself get to draw out your own little effects, while your friends get to interpret them. Subscribe to now on Steam.
All right, that was the trailer. And yes, there is a rule set for this. And here's some screenshots of, I believe it is in Tabletop Simulator. And I think it would behoove, for the benefit of presentation, if David were to give a brief overview of like the rule set succinctly. Here's a brief description here, but feel free to summarize it however you see fit also.
Sure thing. So the basic thing of it to be complicated is that everyone starts out picking out their color on a tabletop, and they're all given like their own little private section on the board. There are 4 sections, allowing for up to 4 players at minimum 3. The basic thing is, when the game starts, each one of them draws in the little card sections anything, pretty much anything in which they want to convey to others. And as the game starts, as it was shown, the simple combat, as I could say it, is a rock, paper, and scissors. But it starts to get interesting once the drawing mechanic gets introduced. As the person to your right, or the person that is not battling you, essentially interprets what you've drawn and the effect that it has on the game. And it could be done at any time. And I have a video of a demo as well, where all sorts of things happen. Through my playtesting, there have been people that have like instant win cards. Other people have done antis as well, like a simple drawing of the word no. But everyone's sort of like gotten really creative with it, and they keep on playing it over and over again, sort of like a roguelike experience, learning how people think, how people interpret things, and also improve themselves upon their own drawing, getting more creative with it. So yeah, that's basically it's simply complicated.
Cool. All right, thank you, David. Any early questions to start us off?
I have a question. I have a few questions, actually. What's happening in the middle of the board with the 4 pawns?
That one is essentially how you win the game. I'm sorry, I was mostly focusing on the greater picture rather than even the win condition. The win condition is essentially to get to the end of the board. So you get 5 wins, you get to the end of the board, and people have made a bunch of effects, like saying like, okay, I get to skip forward 3 or all the way to the end, or I send you all the way back. It's sort of a way, it's sort of like an extra place for people to get creative in, other than just the rock, paper, scissors. And also I felt like that would be a way to like time it as well, not like Monopoly.
Okay. What's like, can you give us some examples of some of the rules that people have made up and how they affect the normal rock, paper, scissors play?
Yeah, there. One of my favorite ones has been it's actually in the demo video that I'd made. One of the playtesters decided that they were going to draw something out as something taking away something else, sort of like a hand reaching out, and someone else interpreted that as you get to take away one of the player's cards of rock, paper, or scissors. And so for the rest of that round, they had 4 cards, while the other one only had 2 options. So yeah, that's one of the many interesting ways that people have taken things.
That's really funny. Any intent on making this into like a physical game you can order?
If I figure out how to do it physically, absolutely.
What do you think you can't do physically?
It's more along the lines of material. I don't understand that much about it, and I want to learn. Sort of like, plastic cards and all that jazz. It's something that I really haven't delved too much into, but I definitely want to learn and make it myself. I'm even like, at the moment, I'm also thinking of like other things in order to spice up the game. Something that the others have suggested in terms of add-ons, like, I think I might be getting off topic, but one of the things that has been suggested to me and that I've been discussing with others, like, is adding add-ons to like improve the game, or rather spice it up. For example, one of them was you draw for another player what their cards are, and that to me is just hilarious because that adds that air of unexpectability and just overall.
I see. Okay, yeah, I love it. It's great. No further questions.
So, I really love the open-ended, like, Jackbox kind of aspect of this. So, unfortunately, I must ask a question about the more, I guess, boring, obvious part. I'm kind of curious as to why you chose rock, paper, scissors as the core mechanic underneath all this chaos, because the interesting thing about rock, paper, scissors when you play multiple games is the mind games of like, oh, well, you picked rock last 2 times. Are you going to do rock again? Are you going to do paper? I was wondering if you were like planning to work that mechanic into the open end in this, or whether it was simply a way to like basically play war but with an infinite number of cards.
I think that mind game of rock paper scissors is still in this. I've had numerous times where people tried to like outthink each other even without their own cards. For example, one of the things that happened was one time, because they're physical cards instead of doing actual symbols, they would literally shuffle all the cards and they wouldn't even know what they're picking either. So yeah, that was sort of confusing themselves to a degree, but there have been numerous instances where they've just played rock paper scissors as well. Even though it's not mentioned in this version, because that is the older version of the rules. There's a bit of a longer one. There's essentially a rule that has been placed that essentially, wait, which one was it? It was the rule in which, every time they get they essentially tie about 3 times, the thing ends. So, because there have been numerous instances where they would just play regularly and they would just keep tying and tying and they couldn't do anything else. And the other rule that was set up was the 1 card rule, because they have drawn out cards. There have been instances where they just threw out all 3 of them at the same time, and that just threw it off balance. So if they want to get up an edge, they use one of those cards, or it could be detrimental depending on what it is. But that mind game, I think, is furthered with this. And, I felt like a simplicity would definitely help with the complexity. So simply complicated.
Nice. I love the name of the game. It's hilarious. And the trailer was very well made. I'm a little I'm wondering about how the rule interpretation has any limits, or if it's completely unlimited, like no holds barred.
It pretty much is no holds bar, for the most part. There have been a few rules set, for example, like anything and nothing can be like over or around in like influence. For example, one person very early on in my playtests drew like a kill player card, and that player was just stuck doing nothing. So yeah, I implemented that rule in order to make sure, like, okay, they're dead for this round, but next round they're coming back because that effect is put.
I guess, yeah, my question there is how are you informing the players of those rules? If this game was I guess distributed, if I were making up a rule, like how would I know sort of the limits of that?
I guess that would sort of be just from what I've seen and from what I've sat down and experienced, it just sort of becomes a thing of your own set of rules. I even mentioned like at the bottom of the new rule set, like these rules are meant to be sort of like they can be a grounding, but they could also be like I don't remember what the words are, but more of like a path that you don't have to follow. You can mess with it if you want, but these are the base rules. This is the foundation. If you want to stray from it, that's fine. But overall, like the interpretation is meant to be limitless.
I have a kind of weird question, if y'all don't mind. In what like contexts do you imagine this would be played, like if it was in the real world?
Context, I'd probably imagine, as I'd written in my thesis paper, I sort of have it like for pretty much anyone, like anyone that's like looking to understand a bit more art, because as I've said, like with this whole drawing thing, people learn how to interpret one another and what the other one is thinking about certain art. So like the word no is obviously universal, but there have been instances where people have drawn other things like references, like one of the last shots in the trailer was of Metal Gear Rising, and one of the players didn't understand that. So that's something in interpretation that they couldn't get towards. As for any other situation where anyone will play this, I imagine it being sort of like anything along the lines of Monopoly, Sliders, pretty much just a game that you play freeform.
Gotcha. Yeah, the reason why I ask is because I've like prototyped games kind of like this, and the way people react to it can swing wildly depending on who's playing it and what they're like looking to get out of it,
Yeah, I've 100% experienced that. There have been people that just want to win. As I've said, there have been numerous instances where I've just had like instant win cards, and people have had to like take that into account and just like draw like cards that just say no or anything else similar to that. So it's pretty much just like a game of who wins in this case. But yeah.
Can I ask another follow-up question with like the cards and the rules and stuff?
Sure.
When does everyone like get to make up the rules? Is it in the middle of play or is it at the start of play?
Middle of play is usually when it's done, because that's when people realize what they've drawn.
I think, what have you considered, like everyone makes up rules at the beginning and then everyone can kind of agree on if they're good rules or not, and then they go into play? Then like you can randomly be saddled with a funny rule that someone came up with, but like you've all agreed upon is worth using.
Yeah, that could probably work. I absolutely understand like a preset of limits. Yeah, that could 100% work.
It's like the veil of ignorance idea that like everyone contributes to making the game, but then like you're stuck with whatever you've all agreed on could happen.
Yeah, sounds cool. I'm gonna go ahead and write that down.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I think we have to wrap up here. But there was one question from the chat. Wingblade Xvia asks, I'm not exactly sure how to interpret this, but has David played Attack of the Friday Monsters, digital only 3DS narrative RPS battler, some type of rock paper scissors narrative 3DS game of some sort?
I've never heard of that. I'm looking it up right now.
That's a Ute Saito game, I think.
Oh, interesting.
He made Seaman and Ute's Tower.
Oh, huh. Interesting.
I think so, or it's like his company anyway. Anyway.
Huh. Okay, that's something worth looking into. Okay, yeah. Yeah, feel free to look that up, David. And
yeah, you got it up on my browser right now.
Yeah. Yeah, Babycastles did show Seaman at one of our exhibitions for there's a froggy, muddy swamp in the basement of Babycastles one time.
Sorry, it's not a Ute Saito game, but it is part of the Guild series that he is involved with.
Yeah, okay. Stand corrected. Okay, I think we have to wrap up there, but yeah, a lot of good questions and answers here. So yeah, yeah, I guess we'll move on. Yes, thank you, David. Clap, clap,
All right,
clap,
thank
clap,
you.
clap. Okay, up next is Xander, who I don't believe could make it today. Okay, Wingblade XVS says it was a supergroup collab for the Rock, Paper, Scissors Battler. Okay, cool. But yeah, up next is Xander's game. We'll give feedback to Xander, but unfortunately they couldn't make it today because of some obligations. But yeah, we are gonna give some feedback to Xander as much as we can. So yeah, Xander Thornborough, game design student with an interest in XR, 3D modeling, and Korean history. For this project, I'm working as a part of a team of 3 with Dabin Lee and Hyejin Jang. All right, so let's check out Xander's project. All right, thank you. All right, clap, 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 clap. And here's a couple screenshots of Nyung Sowa over the walls. Soak it in. Soak it in. Soak it in. I'm gonna stop saying that because I feel that's weird to say. All right, explore and learn about a 19th century Korean palace in this VR-based exploration game. So, what I don't want to like put words in Xander's mouth, but basically, I'm gonna try and explain as best I can from what I understand about the project. Yeah, it's basically a recreation of a semi quasi realistic recreation of a Korean palace in a VR based game, and yeah, it involves like a lot of like elaborate 3D modeling, um, but yeah, it's I can't speak much more than that. Um, and yeah, there's like some navigation where you jump from place to place and you examine objects and artifacts, and yeah, I believe they did a lot of research in trying to be very faithful to the artifacts and architecture of uh, of the pieces in question, and they actually travel to like real world locations and stuff as research. So yeah, I believe that's all I can speak to about this. But yeah, feel free to give feedback based on the screenshots, and yeah, maybe we can just play the trailer again in the background while we give some brief feedback.
I can also chime in and give some more context if people appreciate that. I think another
Yes,
thing,
please.
Xander.
Yeah.
So I had the real pleasure of getting to play this game, and it's really incredible. I think Xander has done a really bang up job on like modeling everything. But another like interesting thing that he spoke about in the development of like this VR experience is that he's like seen so much like Korean historical media that's focused on like a lot of like the upper echelons of society. And I think I might be wrong, but he said something about how he wanted to focus more on like the lives of like daily people, because a lot of times when we speak of history, we are focusing on like the ultra rich, and he has this XR experience from the perspective, I believe, of a servant in the palace. So really, really interesting way to explore history, I feel like.
Right.
How are you
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
how are you learning about the life of the servant in the palace? Are you actually like picking up audio logs? Are you able to read something? Are you just doing their daily chores? Like is it the emergent kind of like gameplay or interactions that you'll like experience and you'll one-to-one on their life, or is it like telling you about it?
I'm not sure. I played an earlier demonstration of it, but I think a lot of it does come from like walking around and being able to see like the objects of the time. And I think that in itself already tells a lot about like the historical circumstances.
Okay, cool. So it just puts you directly in their shoes. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say something. So I've seen a lot of like XR games where it's just like there exists a virtual space and you walk around with it and interact with objects. I just want to say that is beautiful and fine by itself. I feel like there's often this expectation that like, oh, we need to go further. It needs to tell a story or do something magnificent or have some kind of emergent narrative. And that's all great when people do that. But I think this space is beautiful enough in itself, and all the care and detail that went on all the models. I think I would greatly enjoy just walking around the space, just touching everything. And the level of interactivity he has here is, or they have here, is really fantastic. I'm actually kind of curious in the build how much of these objects are interactive. And we see a bunch of them in the trailer, but I mean, I have no idea how far this actually goes.
I just want to pop in and say I really love the kind of the efficiency of the modeling. Like everything is very clearly capturing the look of real, Korean homeware design from the era. But it's done like with this, as few vertices as possible. It's really lovely looking and like very much captures the look of these pieces of furniture and things. I love it.
I'm very curious about the references used. Like, is this based on like a specific household, based on pictures of like past ancestors, or like what, like if this was like kind of a specific place, or if it's more like an artistic interpretation of what it was like,
I'm not sure if Xander had a specific place in mind, but I'm sure that if anyone is interested, he'll be probably releasing documentation with regards to this game soon. And honestly, he is a delight to talk to about this stuff because he's very passionate about it. So if you want to ping him or reach out to him and ask about his research, I definitely would.
Right. And I just hope when Xander sees this that he'll note all these questions and then go ahead and address them as best he can in like the comments or whatnot, or just keep them in mind for the project moving forward, because these are all just very natural questions that a lot of people are wondering and intrigued by this project.
I have one last thing to just chime in with. I understand that the emphasis here is on the modeling. The modeling is very detailed and very beautiful. But I'm really curious to see if Xander has any interest in playing around with the lighting for these scenes once he starts playing with shaders, materials, stuff like that. because I think the sense of atmosphere that he wants to create here, like the lighting is really going to bring that out just as much as all the little details. I actually kind of wonder with this kind of flat shading if some of these details are actually easy to miss simply because the lighting is so flat. I don't mean that as a criticism. I mean that as like that's an exciting direction he could take this if he wants. And it's also a lot of fun to play with 3D lighting.
Cool. I suppose we that might be the last remark. There is a comment from the chat from Fantastic Nicky. This game has a god tier tutorial. So thank you, Fantastic Nicky. I believe they might have been someone who played the game before. So yeah, thank you for that comment. And also, literally a king gives some claps for I believe the games today. So yeah, thank you for joining us.
I'm just gonna drop off as I mentioned before, but thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, Sam. Yeah, let's give it up for Sam and Xander, everybody. Yep, clap, 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 clap. All right, clapping in the silence of my room. But yes, that's the Zoom life, as it were. All right. Okay, so up next we have Daniel. Do we have Daniel?
I'm here.
Okay, Daniel. Yes. Okay, great. So yeah, just be ready for Q&A, and yeah, we'll get through your trailer and screenshots. So yeah, Daniel. Hello, my name is Daniel. I'm based in New York City. I'm a game designer with passions for systems thinking and cultural representation. Although my strongest skill is programming, my current focus is in the field of systems design. I strive to learn a new skill whenever I get the opportunity and enjoy meeting others who are motivated to grow as well. When I'm not working on a project, I'm either dancing salsa, making art, or just reading a book. All right, so let's check out the trailer now. Whoops, let's unmute this. All right, and yes, all these what appears to be credits to be explained by Daniel in a bit. But yes, let's check out the screenshots. There's one in what appears to be a restroom. Another one against another kind of figure here. Another with a badger of some sort versus the unpaid intern protagonist. And yes, a performance report. Body punches, jabs, frenzy against a bull-like figure. So yes. So fight bosses literally as an unpaid intern in Clockout, an arcade-style fighting game. Wreck chaos, climb the corporate ladder, and fight the system. So yeah, I'm gonna just loop the trailer again, and maybe you can answer some initial questions that people might have, or just some natural questions that you think might be worth addressing right now, Daniel?
Absolutely. I guess the initial question first would be those credits at the end. I worked on a team of 6 people, and we were all coming from different universities. So that's why you saw like WPI, RIT, RISD, etc. I was the Parsons rep for this project, but I can take any questions as they come now.
Great. All right, any questions for Daniel?
First off, the art style I think is very cool. I dig like the character designs and all that kind of stuff. Also, can you speak to like how it controls and like sort of what the main gameplay loop is like? Because I assume that this is a phone game or something to that effect, right? Because you have the Apple logos and stuff like that, and I feel like those are fighting games in that form factors are can be kind of dodgy when it comes to like, you know, the moment to moment gameplay, right?
Okay. Yes. So we sort of took inspirations from both side-scrolling fighting games and like traditional arcade style, like Punch Out, the way that it was. We used Punch Out as the inspiration for the way that for the way that the game controls, and that there's an upper and lower area where you can punch, and there's also an upper and lower area that you can block. When the phone is being held horizontal, the player has 4 buttons, 2 on each side. The ones on the left side are for blocking themselves, and the other ones are for punching the opponent. And then this bar over here that you're seeing, or in some of them, is the frenzy bar, which you build up as you land punches on your opponent. As for the core loop, it's basically in Street Fighter style, where you're just fighting one boss after another with no break in between, just to make sure that the player is staying engaged. And it goes by pretty quickly. We made sure it was a little difficult just so that there's a bit of challenge to it as well. But that's basically the core loop.
I think that's like just a quick follow-up comment. That's a good way of handling that, it seems, because yeah, I mean, like obviously your game, if you're building it from phones from the ground up, is going to function differently than like a console game that you know downscale to put on phones or whatever. But yeah, that seems like a bunch of good decisions to make that all work, right?
Right. We had considered adding movement, and we looked at a couple of mobile games that did it well, such as Skullgirls, but like we decided that movement wasn't really necessary. So just keeping it in place and then just having the side-by-side fighting would work just fine. Like right here, they're on like a meeting room desk.
Yeah. So I have a question about the character design. Visually, these characters are wonderful and like beautifully animated and everything. I was kind of curious how, in terms of gameplay mechanics, you would differentiate one fighter from another, especially given that you have this very minimalist like fighting system.
So because every character would have to have the exact same moveset, which is like upper lower punch and upper lower block, to differentiate them, we just gave them all their different personalities. Like you saw that the cat boss uses like emojis on her phone to flick at the player. But one thing that differentiates the challenge is that as every boss and even the character themselves, they all have certain stats. And there's obviously there's power, there's stamina, there's health, there's defense, and there's also speed. So depending on how much speed or defense you have, if you have more speed, then the frame data for your punches comes out faster. There's also less cooldown on your punches if you have a high speed. If you have a high defense, whenever you successfully block a hit, you actually take more of the opponent's stamina from what they're using of that punch. So we had to have an additional system that I worked on, since I mostly worked on like all of the systems design and like the player experience for this project, but we needed an alternative to make up for the basicness that was the move sets.
Those stats. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Has to be curious as to how stamina works. Do players have to conserve that as they play? Is it meant to like prevent mashing, or what does that do?
So stamina, you have a full bar of stamina in the fight. When you see the trailer again, you'll notice that there's like a turquoise bar underneath the health bars. That's your stamina. Every time that you throw a punch, you deplete some of your stamina. But if you throw a punch and that punch gets blocked, you actually lose even more stamina than normal. And this is just a way to prevent mashing and to encourage the player to take their time through these fights. we noticed when we were examining like the arcade styles such as Punch Out, that that's one of those games that you can't really just button mash your way through, is that you have to like be really calm and collected, such as if you were boxing.
I want to say this trailer is really well made. I love that it's got some like narrative setup and then the gameplay as well. How big was your team, and like how was the process of collaborating on a team like this?
So the team was 6 people. We had 3 artists. Well, we had two like we had a 3D artist, a 2D artist, and an animator. And I was the team's designer, and then we had 2 programmers. But I didn't really stay just doing design, since once that was done, or like if we took a break from it, like I had to do some art or some programming. So I ended up wearing multiple hats, as did my other teammates as well. We had about 3 months to work on this project before it got handed off to another team for WPI semester, and they've actually just finished the third version of this. I think it just launched. But collaboration was difficult at first. We had to get to know each other. We obviously had to get out of the headspace of being a consumer and then becoming a producer and working in teams and making the difficult decisions that you find in professional environments. The environment that we were thrown into is more towards AAA and less on the indie side, and that was something that our boss like made very clear during the internship. So there were a lot of things that we left on our wish list that we couldn't get to, and I had another point that I wanted to make. Anyway, it'll come to me.
Scoping is always the hardest, so kudos for recognizing that early.
I remember the point now. We all had our values, like we all had different design principles and things that we really wanted to make sure was incorporated in the game. For one thing, we decided very early that we didn't want to use humans, because that would become a lot more complex, and we'd have to throw in a lot more considerations for like representation of humans. So that was what made it. That was one of the things that influenced. The other thing is that we just said like animals are cute and more relatable. Like there are personalities that you can find in animals that you can't necessarily find with looking at one human or the other. So yeah, that was one of the benefits of working with a team, is that we learned to set aside some of those values, but not completely degrade ourselves and not be unhappy with what we make.
Thanks.
No problem.
I think you did a really great, or the team did a really great job, like selling the story through the art. I feel like even just like I just saw a standard level with like the background art, like, okay, cool, I get the story right away. But I was kind of wondering about the on-screen buttons. Like I understand you don't want to move and run and just do the blocks and the hits, but why are you using or have you tried using gesture control instead of on-screen buttons? Because you have all this like really nice art that you're showing, and then the buttons are taking up a lot of the screen real estate, right? Like, is that a time save? Which I mean, it probably would be, or is that?
Yeah, we didn't get to test without like gesture controls, or we didn't get to test it with gesture controls, just mainly due to scope. But personally, it was one of the things that I had brought up, because we were like, there's going to be the players who are like very familiar with the genre, who will obviously know, like, if you dedicate a quadrant of the screen to a certain attack, then players will do that. And I think that if we had more time, we would have implemented an option where you can turn the control scheme off or on, depending on which one you wanted to play with. But as for the buttons taking up a lot of real estate, we had to go through a lot of iterations of what colors they were, and also like what the art was on each of them, just to make sure that we're targeting like the target audience was unpaid interns, but we weren't sure if a whole lot of unpaid interns were familiar with video game control schemes and genres. So we wanted to make it more open to that audience, to make sure that they could all at least enjoy it and play it. So yeah, it came at the cost of a lot of screen space, but it was more beginner friendly.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. We should probably do, if we have some wrapping up remarks, final remarks, we should do those now because we do have to move on at soon enough. And yeah, we're past 7:30 now, like by about 7 minutes, and we have 6 more students to get through. So we just want to make sure we respect everyone's time. But we did start late, so we do want to respectfully give everyone the proper feedback they deserve. But yeah, unfortunately, we might go a little over time. So yeah, we'll try to do our best to balance all those things at the same time. But yeah, any final remarks? Otherwise, we can move forward. Okay, great. And yeah, seems like a lot of really great questions coming through here for David's team's game because Daniel's team's game because yeah, there's just a lot of things to ask about and a lot of really great things to chew on from what was shown. So yeah, great job. And also just one question from the chat. Nate Kiernan asks, have you played Anarcute? Because it has a similar aesthetic and kind of similar themes and stuff. Might be something
I haven't heard of it actually, but I'm willing to check it out. Like, is it on mobile or is it like a console game or computer game?
I think it might be a console game. I'm not sure, but yeah, it has like similar kind of themes and stuff. I've heard of it. Yeah, yeah, we can send a link afterwards and whatnot. Cool.
I'm actually surprised that we actually didn't come across that one. I know that we used a lot of references from like Agretzko and this one other indie game called Going Under. Going Under was like at the very center of our art inspiration. But I'll take a look into Anarcute.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Going Under, I can definitely see that for sure. Yeah, it definitely comes through 100%. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks, Strauss.
Clap, clap, clap.
Nate also just dropped the link in chat for that game.
Yes, great. Awesome. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you, Nate.
All right, so let's move on to Anshuman, who has a very brief intro, which is fine enough. We are short on time, so that helps us. And after Anshuman, we'll have our break for about 10 minutes. But yes, let's do Anshuman's game first, and like make sure we give enough time to respectfully give Anshuman enough feedback, of course, in that time. So yes, Anshuman is a artist, writer, and creative technologist. And let's check out Anshuman's game. There is music in my head 24/7. And this is played using mouse and webcam input. Okay, and that was There Is Music in My Head 24/7. Couple more screenshots. An interactive poem about the inner workings of the mind, played with the mouse, the eyes, and the mind. An exploration in experimental interfaces. So yeah, we'll go back to the trailer, and yeah, I feel like there's probably some natural questions people will have, but Anshuman can feel free to field those while we loop this.
Yeah, I'd love to take any questions.
So I am an absolute sucker for experimental interfaces, and this is beautiful. So I just wanted to open with that.
Thank you.
I was actually just kind of curious about the eye tracking. I've noticed that this kind of interface tends to be difficult because it's usually like trained on the people who've like first created it. Have you had issues in playtesting with people with different kinds of eyes and different eye colors, things like that?
So with me, I played around with 2 different versions of eye tracking. The earlier one was, I'm not even going to talk about that. This one, surprisingly, it works well with almost all faces. It really is just a matter of controlling the lighting. And since this is going to be exhibited in a space, so I will be able to do that. It is not perfect, I will say that. And I mean, if I had more time, I would definitely work to perfect that. I wanted to work more on the narrative for this. So I think I'm happy with how it works though, for sure.
I too am a sucker for experimental interfaces. So, and also this is beautiful. So opening with that as well. Is it designed to be exhibited in a space, or is it something that you would want like people to have or to experience like in their own settings and stuff like that?
That is an amazing question, because this project originally started out with the idea of creating for space, like an installation. Because I'm not a game student, I do more of installation work. But being quarantined for so long, I realized I needed to make experiences more accessible. And I played a game called Before Your Eyes in the quarantine. And that really
I was gonna say that
eyes.
this reminded me of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that really opened my eyes, funny, to the possibilities of just a laptop, like what you can do with what we have. That was what this was. I really wanted to see how we can bring installation experiences to local laptops and computers.
That's really cool.
So I have a question about the narrative nature of this game. It's interesting that like you're doing this cool thing about, oh, with video games, salience is a big part of how you put any game together. Like famously, you walk through an open world game, and literally the only thing that the game understands is what's right in front of you, and you've made that very explicit here. But I notice you tend to do this by having words at the like different corners of the screen, which you have to move your eyes to read anyway. I was wondering if, like, I can't really tell from the trailer, but if you're doing anything about the natural motion of your eyes going from one part of the screen to another, since this is something that you can track with this interface, so you wouldn't be able to in a regular video game.
Wow, that's amazing. That is literally why I put it there. It started out because the text came in much later. It was originally just I wanted people to see audio inside their mind, and because of how I was prototyping, I was just placing it in the corners of the screen, and I realized since I'm putting information in the hidden interface in the corners, I have to kind of represent that visually too when your eyes are open, which is why I kind of did the 4 corners, just because somewhere in the middle of the game, the visual interface blends into the audio interface. Like the blacks of the screen are actual like audio pieces you can hear in the audio interface. Like all of those are actual audio elements.
I think it's really cool you made a hands-free game in the era of COVID. I think that was like a, you know, I don't know if you did that on purpose or if that was a unintended happy coincidence, but I think it's really cool how you integrated like the senses of audio and visual like together, right? It's an audio-based game with your eyes and like encouraging the player and like kind of knowing that the player is listening to your audio as intended, closing their eyes and like shutting down their other senses to like enhance it. I just think that's like such a smart thing to do, and it's like really really interesting.
Thank you. It's actually really fun to play around with. I'm not gonna lie. It surprised me because I was making it, but when I got people to test it, and they in their head they started to see weird stuff, it's like, whoa, okay. So it's definitely a fun thing to play around with.
In the so in the video, there's parts where you have your eyes closed. So I assume you're using the mouse at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. Had you what am I trying to say? Is there an aspect to using your hands at that point that become like pertinent to the narrative, or would it be possible to do like, you know, head angle tracking to move the cursor as well?
I've considered that. I really don't know why, but I stuck with the mouse. Okay, I'll tell you why. I do know why. I stuck with the mouse because, like I said earlier, I was user testing this idea of closing your head and seeing things. And I felt like the mouse instinctively, I was researching for my thesis how user interfaces are used, how it's affected our psyche and stuff like that. The mouse is kind of ingrained into our heads that we need to search with this. We need to find something on the screen. And especially giving it to my friends who play FPS games, he could, because he was using a mouse and like listening to this audio space, he was picturing an actual 3D environment instead of a 2D space. So I feel like a mouse has potential that I've cracked into, and I need to explore more, if that makes sense. But head gestures is something I haven't explored yet because I was so interested in the mouse. It is something I should. I feel like it might add.
Can you talk on how the poem is somewhat about acceptance?
I can, yeah. So in the narrative, it's about this character who used to have music in his head 24/7, and he visualizes it in various ways. But the music has slowly started to fade away due to certain circumstances. And the whole story is about how you kind of learn to listen to new music, if that makes sense. So in the end, yeah.
I keep thinking about the optical illusion where you have the colors of the American flag and they're all wrong, but you stare at it long enough and you move over and they're the after image are the right colors. Have you experimented with anything like that in this game or in general?
I haven't, like, not that specific aspect. I need to write that down firstly. Like after images, yeah. I was looking at something on the street earlier today and I looked at the sky and my eyes were blinded because I don't know LEDs. But in respect to that, something similar is I noticed that I was playing around with closing your eyes and opening your eyes. I noticed that in a dark room, I was in a dark room because programming. There's a light in front of me. I realized that even when your eyes are closed, you can still see through your eyelids. So the colors changing on the screen, you can still see through your eyes, if that makes sense, if it's bright enough. So I've kind of stepped in that direction. And I think after images might be like an amazing way to bring it into this, specifically because it's visual and a visual novel. That's a great piece of feedback. Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll have to wrap up soon. Maybe give some final remarks, but it seems like we got a lot of great feedback here. Yeah, any final remarks? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Lots of great feedback for Anshuman. Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
guys.
And give it up for Anshuman, everyone. And with that, I think that brings us to our first, our only intermission. We're gonna take a break for about 10 minutes, and then people can, grab a snack, do whatever, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes or so. So yeah, I'm gonna mute myself and change the screen, and we'll all be back. So see you soon. We should be live, and my microphone is live. Hello, folks, and welcome back from intermission. Hopefully y'all had a nice break and are ready to get back into checking out some students' games and enjoying the wonderful world of game development. All right. I don't know what else to say. Let's just do it. So yeah, welcome back to the Parsons x Babycastles game night, and we have a few more games to go through. We're gonna try and wrap up. We were scheduled to wrap up around 9, but we started late, and we ran a little behind time, so we're gonna run a little over. But we have like 5 more games to go, and yeah, we're gonna give our feedback from our guest critics and whatnot. So yeah, up next is Milena. Milena could not attend today, but we're gonna give feedback on Milena's work. So, all right, Milena is a game designer and illustrator currently based in New Jersey. She is interested in exploring the realms of horror, science fiction, philosophy, music, and memoirs to convey compelling narratives through her artwork. Too many windows. Okay. All right. So yeah, Milena wasn't able to provide a trailer, but Milena did provide some screenshots of her game, and it was a 2D sprite-based game. It is playable, and you explore these environments as like this kind of like Legend of Zelda-esque kind of figure, and there's like some interesting artwork here at work here in the conclusion. But yeah, kind of mixes all these things as she was describing. So, Moments is a work of interactive fiction with light puzzle mechanics. It serves as a memoir recounting the series of rapid realizations one makes during their final semester of college, as they enter a daunting stage of life. It explores themes of the self and what it means to be human through biological, spiritual, and philosophical lenses. All right, so yeah, that's Moments by Milena Correa. So yeah, any natural questions we have coming from this so far, and anybody who's like maybe in the chat or even in the room right now who's played it before, feel free to chime in. But yeah, otherwise we can have some natural reactions to the materials provided so far.
I think the juxtaposition between something so serious and then like a Game Boy palette is really interesting, right? Like I think you would never see like a serious game on a Game Boy or the original Game Boy, and I think it's like really nice to like it really stands out because of that, and I think that's really great.
It reminds me, I actually got the chance to play, and it was a really neat experience. And I think it's really accurate to what the description says it is, like a personal exploration of all these moments culminating into graduation and moving on to another part of your life. But it actually kind of reminds me now that who was just speaking, John says that it kind of reminds me of Maddie Bryce's Mainichi, if anyone's heard of that. But I think games as a type of diary medium is always super like impactful, at least personally for me, and it's such an interesting way to use the medium.
Speaking of diaries, maybe I'm just reading too much off that really cool non-symmetrical face, but I am getting Yuen and Nicky vibes from this. That's another game that took this sort of like traditional RPG style exploration and added some like really deep psychological themes. I have no idea like how well that's represented in the actual gameplay because there's no gameplay in this video, but that's a really kind of interesting direction to be taking this material.
I was also seeing like my mind went to Yumeniki when I saw like that part specifically.
Just want to say the like dithered shading in some of these, like the face that we see here in the title screen. It's really neat. It's a great look. I love the dithered shading. I'm curious how they pulled it off so well.
I'm also a big fan of like the kind of juxtaposition between the very like flat shaded overhead camera sort of screens and the more high detail dithery looking thing.
Actually, I just really like that vibe of here is something very regular because it's imitating the memory limitations on the original 8-bit Game Boy, where you had to tile things because it's the only way you can get that much variety in visually, and then just completely wrecking it. Even in this one image here, it's like, oh, here's some neat ordered boxes. It would be a shame if I did something terrible to them. It's also striking that this would actually be impossible on original Game Boy hardware simply because of that. It breaks the regularity that you needed as a technical limitation back then, but as a element of style, and that's pretty cool.
All right, cool. Any other comments from any of the other guest critics? Anything from the chat? Let me quickly check the chat. Okay. Okay, maybe that'll be the final remarks, and that's all that's said on that. And maybe we're ready to move on to the next game. And Milena can just take some notes on the remarks said so far. So yeah, thank you everybody. Let's give a round of applause for Milena. Clap, 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 snap, snap, snap. And let's move on to the next game. All right. So yes, Nicky, I believe, is here.
Yeah,
Nicky.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Nicky is really hype. All right, great. Love to see it. All right, so here we go. Nicky is a BFA game design student specialized in level design and narrative design. He is on his way to become an all-around game designer. From 2019 to 2022, Nicky has worked on various game titles in both the US and China, from Unity to Unreal Engine, from various indie games to AAA titles. He enjoyed every second of it and is currently looking for every opportunity to become a better game designer in the industry. Alright, and let's check out this trailer for Solarpunk Academy. Unmute that first and let's get this started. All right, clap, clap, clap. That was the trailer for Solar Punk Academy. Whoops. All right, check out a couple screenshots here. So we could just kind of like soak in the graphics here and the text. Alright, Solar Punk Academy is a visual novel game about mental health, superpowers, and a new way of life. The game is about being an amateur mental health therapist in a school of superhuman teenagers in the year 2041. Through interactive storytelling and strategic conversations, the player will uncover each character's traumatic memories and help the patients overcome their fear. All right, let's go back to the trailer, loop that, and then, whoops. And yeah, Nicky can field some questions.
Let's go.
First off, it's always great to see a fellow visual novel developer here. I really appreciate some of the details, the hard work you put into them. Animated emotes, always a nice gesture. So rare to see in this genre. Yeah, like that one there, fantastic. Your backgrounds are really good. They are very evocative without taking the attention away from the characters, who I can tell are the real emphasis of your storytelling. I want to sort of like ask about the strategic nature of these choices, because structure is one of the really hard things to do narratively in a visual novel. Maybe it's just how it's represented in the trailer, but I noticed you went for this sort of minimal approach of like your two choices there are like agree or like push back. And I was wondering like what was the mindset behind making that like a simple sort of thing, because it in this particular interaction in the trailer it very quickly spirals off into like an unfortunate sort of like maybe unintended consequence of what seems like a very innocent action. I was wondering like what your thoughts were and how this ties in that strategic level of gameplay that you mentioned at the end of your trailer.
Okay. First of all, thank you for asking this question. I just want to be honest here. Okay, let's be honest here. That specific interaction is a mock-up because I want to show like as quick as possible how different choices can lead to different consequences. Uh, these uh, these lines on those characters doesn't actually exist in the game. They scatter around in the game, but they don't just appear like that. And actually, the so-called strategic conversation that I've written about before contains three phases, and the player has to make insightful commentary to the patient's conditions and gain their trust, and thus entering their memory flows to see what happened, in their earlier ages and what trauma they have went through.
So I kind of have a follow-up question about how the narrative branches based on these choices. Do you have built-in like different endings or like different things that they open up to you about? Or I mean, it's just as fine to do this as well. Does it all come back to the same conclusion anyway? But you learn different things about the characters depending what you choose.
So about the endings, the game will only have two endings, and it's not like a good ending or a bad ending. It's a fake ending and a true ending. The fake ending is the main character River leaves the Solarpunk Academy after 11 days of this weird experience, and the real ending. I don't want to spoiler here, but like, he figured out that he is a part of the academy. He has some superpower inside him himself. And if you chose the wrong option, if you fail to cure a patient, that's fine. You do it again, but you cannot, proceed in the story.
I am curious about like using solar punk as a setting here. Like, what drew you to that, and like what is it doing in as like a narrative backdrop, I guess? Because like solar punk on its own has a lot of like uh specific political connotations and stuff like that. So I'm interested in like if you're exploring any of that within this setting.
Yeah, so I actually get to know about this concept halfway through the development. And even before Solarpunk as my game's theme, I have actually like the concept of the game has evolved for an entire semester. For an entire semester, I didn't decide what should I make and like what ideology should I put in my game. But then, I started to think I'm just gonna put whatever I want to put, I want to see inside a game and make it my favorite game. And then there comes mental health, there comes sustainability, there comes lives far away from the city, there comes all of these traumatic experiences and like psychology I'm interested in. And then I get to know about Solarpunk, and magically it ties all of these into the one thing. And for anyone who doesn't know what Solarpunk is, it's basically the reverse of cyberpunk. It happens in the best timeline ever, and it's when the humanity have made all the right decisions, all the good decisions to create the best future possible.
The flip side of that, though, also is that it can be how do we survive after the world ends, like
yeah,
making our communities smaller and more sustainable after everything has like gone to hell and stuff like that.
Yeah. I also heard about the connections between solarpunk survivalists and preppers, but I didn't dig deep into that. I was, I focus on the cool stuff. Okay, I focus on the structures, the insightful literatures and stuff.
Cool.
Thank you.
So I have another genre related question. Why superheroes?
It's I want to put some spice in the game to there are two reasons. First of all, I want to have like different things going on in the game to make the game spice up. It's like imagine X-Men without superpowers. it will be boring, right? If they're just mutants, they look different from normal human, they don't have any superpowers, people will not be interested and entertained anymore. So that is one way to make the game more engaging. And the second is that all of these characters, their superpowers and abilities are actually having some sort of connections with real life situations. And actually, two of the characters in this game are inspired by real people around us. I got their consent, by the way. So like, like Avia is greatly inspired by one of my previous coworkers in Tencent. And all of their struggles, their talents are mirrored in real life. And you kind of just want to, as a player, you want to make them overcome their trauma and find their actual talent.
Okay, on that note, there was a question from the chat from Nate Kiernan again. What kind of research did you do into psychiatric therapy to help inform how the game was designed?
Oh my God, thank you so much for asking that question. Uh, I actually signed up for 2 semesters of psychology, intro to psychology this uh, for the production of this game, and I have consulted one friend of mine and the teacher of mine about some of the scientific backups. The methodology in this game is inspired by traumatic focused cognitive behavioral therapy. and I've written a paper about how it is designed for young teenagers and children, but can also be applied to adults, young adults and older adolescents. And there are science backup for that. So I kind of just want to merge the science and fiction together, because you don't get like entering people's mind maze in science, and I kind of just want to put these two together.
Nice. That question was a little bit of an alley-oop there. As just tossing you a underhand throw. Easy. Good question there. So any other questions?
No, I'm good. I'll just comment that I agree that I love how much emotion you put into the characters. You know, with other visual novels, you'll have a lot of static art, but I love that everyone's very emotive as you're talking to them.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I still need to put in more work into screenwritings. Like, that is out of my comfort zone.
Okay, I guess if that. All right.
Can I just follow that up real quick?
Yeah.
Is this your first like delving into real like narrative writing for a game, or because you said I think your background is in level design?
Yeah.
How is it transitioning into, or what kind of project that's more narrative focused and like focus on the writing than the level design?
Well, I've also made level designs that are like more narrative based. I made a Cthulhu-themed horror game with like 10 other people, and I am in charge of the narrations. So I kind of got some experience, but I definitely haven't done a graphic novel before. So like, you know, just read, write, and like delete stuff, rewrite stuff. Because English is not my first language, so I definitely need to get better at it. And like, you will definitely find some of the conversations kind of cringe. I hope it's fine if you ever get to play it.
Well, I do.
I would like to add that one advantage of this genre is that the most popular visual novels are not originally in English anyway, so people will probably not expect it to be flawless.
Really? Is it in Japanese?
Yes, they're usually translated from Japanese. So there are, in fact, a lot of really awkward turns of phrase and ways that people are used to talking that don't translate very well. And also a whole bunch of cultural things, which I think Japanese players would probably just consider to be normal, that really stand out to Western players.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know like 5 Japanese sentences. And I played Doki Doki Literature Club before. That's the only Japanese visual novel I played. It scared the shit out of me. And also, I like your work so much. Like, I haven't heard about it before, but seeing the trailer and the art, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, we showed your game for Horseman today before during the intros, Kevin. So, yeah.
Well, I'll be sure to check out Solarpunk Academy as well.
Thank you. I'll send you the link.
All right, great. And with that, I think we're going to leave off on a good note to move on to the next guest. Yeah, thank you so much, Nicky. Yeah, clap, 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 snap, snap, snap. All right, our next guest. Man, I don't know how I got that stuck in my throat. Our next guest is Chloe. I don't believe she was able to attend today. So yeah, we're going to just give feedback based on her work today, just on what she submitted. So Chloe is a graduating student of Parsons School of Design who has spent the past 4 years studying design and technology with a concentration in game design. Her main interests include animation and digital illustration, with an emphasis on texture and vibrant color. Chloe also enjoys singing, cooking, and gaming in her free time. Yeah, let's take a look at her game here. And this is gameplay footage. All right, and you can check that out on itch.io. Let's move to the next slide. Growing is an interactive animation centered around the experience of an isolated elder who has outlived her family and loved ones. As the first half of the piece depicts, she finds herself somewhat disconnected from the world around her. However, players will have the opportunity to aid the woman in rediscovering beauty in nature and reintroducing warmth into her life. Aw. Very sad. Alright, so let's loop that. And yeah, feel free to jump in with some comments, everybody. And yeah, I asked if we could have one of our mods share the full video in the chat. Let me check if we did. Did we do that?
I shared a link.
Okay.
But
okay. Okay, the Vimeo link?
Yep.
Okay, that should be fine. Okay, great.
I can give a little bit of insight to at least the artistic process, because I think it's a really gorgeous piece of work, and I think Chloe mentioned that she rotoscoped a lot of it, which is just so labor intensive, and you can see a lot of the care that she put into making each of these scenes so like vibrant and alive and very emotive.
Wow, that's really impressive. Wow.
So I just wanted to say I really love this sort of format of interactive art piece point and click adventure, in that a fundamental experience of games is that you point at things and their feelings, and this genre is the very quintessence of that. This very limited color palette, but with this like incredible attention to detail in the hands and the faces, and all the wobbliness from rotoscoping is really, really evocative. It really just does feel like I'm looking at a series of really nice paintings. And I'm really intrigued by how the game opens with those three choices: begin, process, and leave. And I'm immediately curious as to what each of those three things do.
Yeah, I think playing with.
Sorry, 1 second. I wasn't unmuting when I wanted to, but go ahead. I fixed the thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say the color choices I think are great. Like how you see the woman inside and everything's blue, the inside's blue, right? And then like Charles, can you go to the images, the screenshot?
Yeah.
The one with her in the window.
Let me see.
Right, like how it's like clear that the story is like, okay, it's like warm and inviting outside, and how it's like splashing into her, and like I think that just tells you so much of the story right there, just through that one image and like the color choice. I think the whole thing really feels like very much like kind of like a artsy film, like a very Michel Gondry. He did some like rotoscope stuff early on too. I think he still does some stuff that's like really cool, and I'm like a big fan of that. But this one piece really got me. It just, and then like, can you go to the next image too? Yeah, like this, just how inviting the outside is compared to how dreary the home is. I think that just like, that seems to be, just telling the story through color, in such a nice, simple way. It's great.
Yeah, it's getting me a little bit right now, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I want to chime in. It's so beautiful. I love games that have such a unique art style. Nothing looks like this, and it's really wonderful. And I want to play it.
The good news is that you can.
I know. I have it bookmarked.
Yes, here's the itch.io link. Oh, it's already shared in the chat. Okay, great. Yeah.
Also love the some of the text is like just really interesting verbs, like cherish. I saw in one of those the early scenes and stuff like that, and that's not something you see in a lot of games. And again, like kind of piggybacking off of what Kevin was saying, it is doing what games do, but in a very stripped down, focused sort of way. You point at things and it makes feelings happen, but kind of interestingly different feelings.
Yeah, speaking to like the words, these visuals are so powerful. I kind of wonder if the words are even like not necessary. Well, I mean, obviously for UI purposes, there needs to be some way to indicate, okay, this object is interactable. But aside from that very practical thing, there's so much being told without a single word on the screen after you click on these things, and some of these like really striking images that we've just talked about just now. I wonder if it would be even more powerful without them, if there was some way to navigate that limitation of like, oh, what do I click on? Which I understand is always difficult in these games.
Yeah, it's like I could imagine, highlight or something like that when you mouse over a thing that is interactable or whatever, but then, not knowing what the scope of things that are interactable within the scene is always kind of a tricky UI issue to solve in adventure games, right?
I have so many memories of just waving my mouse around the screen.
For
I
sure.
totally feel that.
Yeah.
All right. Seems like a lot of really amazing feedback so far. Any more thoughts at this point? Other than maybe go check it out? Oh, let me see if I'm muted. No, I'm not muted.
You're
okay.
not.
Okay, cool. Cool. All right. I think that might be it. Check it out, chloepuff.itch.io/growing. And I believe it's a pretty short experience, only a couple minutes, so yeah, worth checking out. All right, take a look, folks, and yeah, I guess that'll be it for that. And thank you, Chloe. And let's move on to the next guest. And yeah, thank you, Chloe. Clap, 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 snap, snap, snap. All right. Yes, up next we have Alex Wang and Cecil Boey. Do we have them here still? Yes, I think we have.
Yes.
Yes, I believe
We're
we do.
ready.
Awesome. All right. So yes, they've been waiting very patiently. Yes, let's make sure we give them some feedback. So yes, Alex and Cecil are senior students at Parsons NYC, specializing in 3D, Unity development, and are technology enthusiasts. Alex is a visual designer who is fascinated by constructing scenery with logic. And Cecil is a storyteller that pursues the articulations of challenging concepts in engaging forms. Both of them are skilled in mediums and tools to assist them in their creative visions and are technically demanding on top of their conceptual expressions. All right. So let's check out their trailer. Yeah. Oops. Mute myself. All right, and that has a release date. That was The Exchange. Let's check out a few screenshots here. See some UI here for the VR experience using the hand gestures and whatnot. Here's like a set piece here in the scenery. Another scene in the game. The Exchange, with hand tracking and pass-through incorporated using Quest 2's on-device cameras, embrace this mixed reality event that happens in conjunction with your life. By navigating an AI avatar using intuitive hand gestures, you as an NSA engineer attempt to uncover the mysteries of the arrival of an alien spaceship from an unfamiliar time and space. On board, you will witness their sophisticatedly designed interactive cinematics. They present you with something familiar somehow. All right. And so evocative, so many questions. Yeah, I feel like maybe we'll just get into it. So yeah, feel free to ask away. Or if you have any things you want to clarify off the bat, feel free to do that. But otherwise, just we'll give it to the critics.
So I'm kind of interested in that bit in the description where you say like it integrates with your life. Like, what do you mean by that?
So our game is primarily two major parts. It's a mixed reality event which involves. It starts off as a augmented reality experience. It's in part of the trailer, but I'm not sure if it's really obvious for everyone to see. But you can see your surrounding environments, your physical room, and that is the base settings for the game, which is you are playing as yourself in your own space and in your own time. And then the headset, the VR headset, in our case, is not really like a device for a game or for something else, but it's more like a tool that's necessary for this settings. It's a tool that you need as an NSA engineer to connect remotely to one of your droid in deep space. And then that leads to the entire completely virtual reality experiences, where then you will continue your visual journeys into uncovering the mysteries of an alien species.
Cool.
Yep. And yeah, may I add on a little bit? So we always love to play around with the idea of metaphysics. So when we play a visual narration or be a part of a 3D scenery, it might be suggest that we are in a different universe, right? But this time it's not. It's like in that specific moment, you play as the engineer, and then you connect it with definitely advanced technology to another kind of parallel universe, and then you control that AI bot, and then dive into that safe spaceship to find out why they arrived.
Awesome. That's something that I'm really interested in. Also, is like layered abstraction of like what the player kind of is in the context of the game. So that's cool to see you playing around with that.
Thank you.
On a much more fundamental level, I really miss huge architectural scale VR spaces in with a cyberpunk theme, and I love how this is bringing that back.
Thank you. I and Cecil always fascinated by making giant sceneries, and also like BDO, big dumb objects, are one of our sincere it motivates us a lot and inspires us a lot. So yeah.
I'm kind of curious about this blurring. I mean, well, a lot of AR games do this whole blurring between fantasy and reality kind of thing, but it seems like you're very explicitly making the interaction modes of like crossing over between the real and the virtual worlds part of your game. Could you elaborate a little more on like thematically and mechanically how you do that?
So the two most basic settings in the game is wherein the first one is augmented reality is your own desk. So in the game case, it's the office table for the NSA department. And then in that environment, all you need is your own two hands to perform the most intuitive and most basic gestures to be able to interact with the environments, like pulling some compartments, poking some buttons, touching some stuff. And we try to keep that as not really basic is the right term, but try to keep it as fundamental as possible, so you have those you can have the resonations between your real life and a more augmented settings inside this table setting. And then once since you're an NSA engineer, so the NSA is the full term for NSA is National Space Agency. We kind of play like a word on at NASA, but yeah. So you are developing a really high end technology project where you're using a virtual reality headset to connect to all the probes you have sent out to space, and that becomes the secondary settings where the only way to access and controls footages and different controls of those probes in deep space, you have to use your virtual reality headsets to able to connect to that footages. And so through that settings, you from your own office table, you then connect to using your own VR headset. you then receive informations, visual informations and other informations from a droid from deep space that you sent. And that's when you sort of entered a deeper layer on top of the already augmented reality scene you have. And that's the connections we're trying to like create. Like the player should know that like they are in their own presence, but is trying to receive something and being able to interact with something more abstract and more distant from them. If that made that clear, but
yeah, and then so when I collaborate with Cecil, one of the key question and the key design question we want to solve and experiment is the translation as well as the progression for which like the change between concreteness from abstraction. Because we always figure out that's a very interesting idea where if you as an alien species getting into see a new world, right, you need to learn from the beginning. One of our inspiration is the movie Arrival, where the alien, they come and they use their own visual languages to touch, to speak with human. And so do we want to use our interests to form a similar yet different settings. So as you can see, the trailer shows you have a kind of concrete setup where we can recognize it's sort of like a department or something, but they are also, in contrast, a very abstract setting where the cubes are floating around and break into pieces. So those, if you when we play the game, the player, of course, we want them to know that they are the effort that the alien is trying to speak with human. And when the player plays the game, the alien, they also receive the information from player, so that at the same time, it is a like a bilateral way of learning each other. So you can see at the end, right now the scene has some sort of more complex building structures, and then by going straight forward to the end, some of the sceneries that the player, as a player, as the engineer, they kind of inside his daily routine start to show up. So that's the progression. And in terms of the technical like detail, we always love to use shaders as well as like external tools like Houdinis to create those kind of like procedural structure. Yeah, and this is the opportunity that we can really practice and as well as use it as a tool to describe and express ourselves. Thank you.
So following up on, I think I recognize some of the use cases for Houdini there and your fractal apartment buildings and such. I was really intrigued by this combination of these familiar concepts and familiar architecture in this very surreal world. Is the implication here that as the aliens understand you better, you're starting to see things through their eyes, or like the things you're seeing reflect their understanding of the real world, and that's why you're seeing these like familiar shapes? Like, is that sort of where you're getting at?
So it's pretty much yes, but in more specific terms. So there are two exchanges between the human and aliens. That's why it's called the exchange. So it's basically and completely because the alien is from another time and space. So in our own cognition, we should not understand how they perceive their own reality. So in that case, it's what we presented here as abstract. So the alien is trying to show us humans in our own objective ways why they have arrived. But in order for them to show us, they have to learn from us from how we perceive our world as objective, as how we recognize our world. So through the progressions of the stories, the players will start to see from abstract environments, abstract elements, slowly begin turning into more recognizable elements. And through that, the story should also become more defined and more objective. And that's how the players can understand from a completely abstract concept into something that we can interpret ourselves, but it's in the context of something completely out of our world.
Okay. Yeah, so any more kind of comments? Probably should be wrapping up soon. Lot of questions. Any last questions or comments?
No, it's just it looks really cool. I would love to play this. I don't have much more to say than that. And what engine is this running in?
It's on Quest 2.
Oh, okay. All right. It looks so good.
Thank
It
you.
looks really interesting.
Yeah, is that release date? Is that a release date at the end there?
Official?
It's so it's a date for our pop-up show. So if you want to check it out, you can come to our school buildings to experience it.
Okay,
We really want to share the piece, but we are still wrapping it up. And some of the questions, like the main questions where why the alien will arrive, probably will only be answered by you play as the NASA engineer. And we really want that to happen in time.
Okay, so I guess the only way to answer that is to show up at the pop-up show at Parsons next week and play the game for yourself. All right, cool. All right, thank you, Alex and Cecil. All right, clap, 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 snap, snap, snap. All right. And yes, that's a good plug there for the RSVP. So check it out. Please RSVP to the pop-up show. Thank you, Nicky, in the chat there. All right. I believe this is our last student project here. And we're just coming up to 9 o'clock. So thank you for staying a little late, but this will be our last student. Unfortunately, Ziyue, I don't believe, could make it. But thanks for sticking it out, and we'll give feedback to Ziyue all the same for him to check out later. But yeah. Yeah. So yeah, let's give it up for let's get ready for Ziyue, and let's do it. Oops, my phone. 9 o'clock. All right. So yeah, Ziyue is a 3D artist and game designer in New York City. Has an obsession with anime, and Ziyue's strong suit is making 3D assets and environment building. Ziyue did not have a trailer, unfortunately, but did have some screenshots that we can check out here. Alright, chump, listen up. I'm the best of the fairies. The humans tell me you're supposed to be the best of your kind, and to be honest, I don't know how I feel about that. But I guess I'm just gonna have to trust you on this. Alright. And seems like some pattern making here. Pattern making mechanic. Here's a plant pup here. So Silva is a visual novel style game about rescuing creatures captured by an evil witch. These creatures have been turned into plants. It's up to the player to cast spells to rescue the creatures. This game is one of my first collaborative works. I worked on UI, coding elements, and particle effects in the game. So yeah, we'll wrap up with Ziyue's game Silva. Any thoughts on the screenshots? Feel free to just jump in And if anyone's played it, feel free to hop in
Yeah,
first.
Yeah,
real
we.
quick.
Okay,
Yuen
yeah,
and
go
I
for it.
actually worked on this game with.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
awesome.
any
Okay,
questions?
this works
This
perfectly.
was like actually a big project, so
Oh
there's a lot.
yes.
There's a lot in it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to.
Yeah. Ziyue did not. I don't believe Ziyue submitted a trailer, unfortunately. So
I could link it if you guys are interested. I have a trailer on my video. But just a quick rundown. It's a game played with an alternative controller, so another experimental interface, I guess. It's a physical book that you can kind of. It's a physical book, uses copper tape, and it connects to a computer via USB. And the game is about a witch who's who's terrorizing this town, and you are doing magic spells using this witch's book and a pentagram and trying to save the town.
okay, feel free
I'll
to
try and
send
find
the
a trailer till then. Yeah.
yeah, send the trailer. Yeah, I can pop that up here.
Yeah, I actually worked on the initial iteration of this game and I absconded to. Sadly, I had to leave because I wanted to work on my own personal project for the second half of the semester. So the version that is being shown here was actually polished off by Caitlin Keating, Anshuman, and Ziyue. And Ziyue did so much good in untangling my spaghetti code for this project. And it was just really great to see like how he made the UI more navigatable and made it look really nice and paid attention to how like the buttons in game really have an effect on like the player experience and really help to shape the environment or the play space.
That's really great to hear that progress on the project because yeah, I remember Ziyue during the semester was like his attention was drawn on like different ideas and yeah, some things were hard to get off the ground, but it seemed like he made some really good progress on this project. So yeah, that was really cool. Really glad to hear that.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, about 10 years ago, maybe even a little before that, in the early days of Babycastles, there's this big trend towards really odd novelty controllers with gesture controls, and that was a beautiful era, and I hope it never ends. So to see a game that does that again is wonderful.
Yeah, I just sent the video through in chat if anyone's interested to get a sneak peek of how it actually works.
Okay, I think I'm able to get it to show up. Let me see if it's showing up. Okay.
I see it.
Okay, let's get this going. It's a couple minutes long. Bear with us. Sorry for the timing. Thank you for being patient, everyone.
In the magical town of Silva, humans and fairies live in fear of the legendary collector. Using her book of spells, she terrorizes the citizens of Silva by casting an eternal spell upon them and turning them into plants to add to her ever-growing collection. She collects all sorts of creatures and beasts and lives with them in her castle on top of the Greenhouse Mountain. It's now up to the best of fairies, and, well, the best of humans, I suppose, to put an end to the tyranny of the evil collector.
All right. So that was very different than those screenshots. Very cool. Yes, let's ask some questions. How do I stop this? How does Vimeo work? All right. Yeah, feel free to ask some questions, guest critics.
I'm curious. Does anyone have some insight into how the that book interface worked? Like, was that conductive tape, or was there something else picking up the gestures?
Yeah, so I could speak a lot about that. I made the book. It's essentially kind of 5-button system on the ends of each of the pentagram that you can change the order of, and different orders of those buttons do different things. And it's essentially kind of like a rhythm game controller that we ended up making. Sorry, to add on to that, I don't know if I demonstrated it, but there was a spiral on top of the pentagram.
I saw it.
That is a wave sensor. So you can kind of connect from button to button and then wave to combo into another sequence. Yeah, it was a lot that we put into this. It was a fun project.
Yeah, that's really neat. I'd love to know how the guts of that thing worked. It looks really exciting.
I'd love to chat about that.
I like that the kind of the aesthetics of the book and the game, like they really kind of speak to each other really well.
Caitlin and I were on initial visual development for that, but most of the final art you see is Caitlin's. And also the monster sprites are David's, and I see a bit of Anshuman's art too.
The final like trailer and illustrations of mine.
I just like how you took a experience that is so universal and so simple, which is that it's really fun to draw a 5-pointed star, and you turned it into this like really elaborate, fascinating. It harkens back to the era in which we thought of a video game as a physical object, like an arcade cabinet. Like it used to be that the physical design of the cabinet mattered as much to designers as the game inside it. And this is truly a pure expression of that spirit. Like this is really beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, agreed. To kind of like piggyback on that, do the words in the book have any significance, or is it just like you basically gutted a book and
yeah, I'm so sorry. This happened in like the dead midst of like COVID quarantine. I was in India, like working at 4 a.m. So this is the most unpolished book I could have made. I would have ideally liked to make, like proper printed circuit boards and stuff. This is just, I ripped out an actual book, hand cut the pages, and stuck an Arduino in there.
Sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah. It's kind of like an MVP for what we ideally would like to make, but it was a fun piece in itself.
Yeah, I am like, this is an entirely different thing, but like, I've seen video games and stuff like that sometimes use like physical books as like part of their gameplay, where like you have to like look up text in them or whatever. And that always I find interesting as well, and was wondering if there are any of those kinds of elements there, but totally like chill. If not, it just like something that interests me.
That's something I would definitely work on if I were to take this up in the future.
For sure.
I just realized that in the beginning, when the game was introduced as a visual novel, that this is a pun. But it's not a visual novel in the game genre sense, but it is. This is an actual book. Well done.
Yeah, getting back to the heart of like ebooks, as it were. Yeah, one of my games involved like a journal writing aspect where you could journal your thoughts in a physical book, but this is very interesting how it like combines the electromechanical elements into the book itself too. So that's really cool.
And ultimately, our arcade game do stuff with weird object. I kind of wonder. It's interesting you brought up that this was developed during COVID. Is the ambition to eventually make this an installation piece? Because I'm kind of wondering what the context to play this would be in any other way.
Well, Anshuman, you'd probably be able to speak more to that than I could. I feel like it'd do well as an installation piece due to the uniqueness of the controller and like the motion.
Yeah, this I made the controller like so haphazardly. It's definitely not easy to mass produce. But I feel like an installation could be cool. This, if it were to be able to be mass produced, that would be amazing. I think there could be workarounds into how you can design the book. Maybe the game can be inside of the book delivered. I feel like there are ways to kind of work this to different use cases, which we're all open to. This was like just a fun project to work on. A group of us just went, hey, what if we make a book that you can cast spells with? And we just made it. So we're gonna figure out how to work it out from here.
Oh, could you speak more to your guys' involvement in the development process? Because I wasn't really there, but I remember talking to him about like him just fixing my code, which was it was a mess. You guys wouldn't want to look at it. It's just if statements. So yeah. Do you know anything about that, Anshuman?
The development process might be a little too long to get into, but I feel like I should talk about what each person has done just briefly. We had Caitlin working on art and UI, Yuen working with Caitlin on story and art and UI, and even just game design. I had never made a Unity game at this point, so I was like, you guys do the work. In that case, David, you heard his voice in the trailer. And he also did the animations, the sprites. He also helped with the story a bit,
really great.
And with prototyping.
Mhm.
I made the book, a bit of the art, some of the audio, story, just kind of jumping in and out of everywhere. We had Ziyue finally, who's presenting. Ziyue kind of helped tie everything together, especially after Yuen said, "Yo, nah, it was all cool. We were chill with it."
No, it's a huge, messy, terrible breakup of a dev team.
But Ziyue kind of helped tie in the interface together. It was a lot segregated before this. You guys are talking about how the book feels like it's part of the game. Ziyue kind of made that happen. It wasn't as smooth earlier. We got a lot of feedback from peers, and we added to it. Ziyue helped with that. Yeah.
Have you thought about bringing it to like mobile or some sort of other like touchscreen gesture-based input device, or do you think it loses a lot by not having the physical book?
I would say that just because I made the book. So that might just be me talking, my bias. Maybe someone else can say something else, but like I said, this is right now, it was just a fun project to make. I feel like this could go many places and we haven't considered all of them. So mobile could be one of those.
I do think the book is very cool though.
Like, maybe we could put something a screen in the book and it's a mobile book that we give out. I don't know. It's a cool idea.
Yeah, like Yuen, I think earlier mentioned chaotic interfaces, and this would have been like fit perfectly with the games that we had there.
If it doesn't work great, that's in some ways even better.
Yeah.
No, I work pretty hard to make it work decent. It works pretty decent. But I can make it chaotic on purpose.
I remember so much blood, sweat, and tears over that copper tape. Dude, it's crazy.
All right, lots of cool feedback, lots of surprising involvement. I didn't quite know the extent of like how many people's hands were involved in this project and like all that, like all the technical stuff, all the visual stuff, like all the development, like yeah, there's a whole saga being told here before our eyes. So yeah, really cool. Thank you so much for sharing this and with the trailer. Any final thoughts? Also, yeah, thank you for sharing the trailer also, because before we just had the screenshots, of course. So, but yeah, any other thoughts from the critics, or otherwise we should be wrapping up soon because it's about like almost 9:20 at this point. We did start late, but yeah, we are keeping people a little late too.
No, I have no questions. It's just it's as I said before, I love the book as a prop, and I think these like unique interfaces are a lot of fun. I kind of hope we can get back to like events where we are able to display more of these things sometime soon.
If anyone's curious on how it actually works, sorry, I'm so sorry. If anyone's curious as to how it actually works, I'd be more than happy to actually send the code and stuff. And I have all circuitry diagrams, so if anyone's curious, I'll send my email in the chat.
I am curious. I'll email you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that once the Babycastles physical space reopens, this seems like it would be that would be the ideal place to show something like this.
I could say we're working on it. We're working on getting things up and running again.
Slowly.
Yeah. And yeah, also some other things that come to mind might be something like Indicate or Alt Control GDC, some things to think about. Yeah, if you're aware of them. But yeah, all right. Yeah, very, very cool. Any final closing thoughts on Silva? I feel like I said that weird. Any final closing thoughts on Silva? All right, maybe we'll just wrap up then. Wow, amazing. Good job, everyone. Thanks for sticking it out, everyone. We're just gonna close things up here. We're gonna, yeah, the plan is to have the recording up on YouTube, on Babycastles YouTube. So keep an eye out for that. And we'll send all the people who didn't get to be here for their feedback to, we'll send them like the information on how to look that up. And follow Parsons DT on Instagram, Twitter, and Linktree. And follow Babycastles on Twitter, Linktree, and babycastles.com. To get to the YouTube, I'd recommend going to the Linktree, which is just link.tree/babycastles or linktra.ee/babycastles. And yeah, thanks to all the students for submitting all their amazing projects. Thanks all the great guest critics who were offering their amazing feedback to the students' work. Everyone volunteered their time to be here. And thanks for the staff for being here. Dave, Yuen, behind the scenes people. And thank you, all the guests in the audience who are watching this right now. Thank you for watching. I feel like maybe I'm forgetting somebody in this. I feel like this should be everybody possibly here involved in watching this, I think. Unless I'm forgetting something obvious. I guess thank Parsons and Babycastles. Alright, anyway, thank you everyone. And yeah, thank you all for being here and having a great game night. Yay. Alright. It's been a long night. But yeah, we made it. Clap, 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 clap.
Woo! Thanks everyone.
Yay!
Thank
Woo!
you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
See you all on the pop-up show.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
RSVP to the pop-up show, everyone.
Yeah, yes, please.
May
Yeah,
17th.
I think Nicky sent a link to the RSVP to the pop-up show.
Yeah.
So please go to that. Please RSVP to that.
Drop it again. How about?
Yeah, please come play our games.
Yes.
We're desperate. Not really, I'm desperate.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I think that'll be a wrap. We'll end on a note of desperation. Or come to the show, everyone, and hope to see you again sometime soon, everyone. We're gonna log off from the stream, and yeah, we'll see y'all sometime soon. All right, so yeah, hearts, everyone. Take care. Take care. Bye bye.